Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, and this is the executive producer of the show, Huck L. Berry. Yes, and this is Huck TV. And this is Huck's new summer coat. She just got it cut. She is very, very comfortable now because this is all nice and short, huh? Yeah. And you're a lot cooler now, huh? Daddy just had to wait until the nights got a little warmer so we wouldn't freeze you badly. Yeah, you're a good girl. And she's lost all of that long hair and outer coat. Now she's just feeling much better, huh? Yeah, she's a good girl. She's a good girl, yeah. He's a good girl. Thank you for being here, huh? Audience loves you. Interesting thing, when she comes back from the groomer, we've always had this joke. Maybe it's not a joke. Sometimes I think they give her something that just like drugs her out. She comes home and she's been home for 5 hours now and she's just like rummy. She got up one time and was a little woozy, so I wonder how they can cut her sometimes in her normal state. Maybe somebody knows. Do they give her something that just kind of drugs her out? Because she's been sleeping nonstop. She just put her head down. She's going to go to sleep again. Yeah. So, just a reminder, gather up events. Gather up is one word. Gather up events. We got the Caribbean Bigfoot cruise coming up in September, and you can go to Gather Up events and look at it. And Phenomicon in Utah, PH Phenomicon. I'm going to be there with everyone from Skinwalker Ranch. You'll want to be there. It'll be one of the best. It'll be one of the best conferences of the year. It was last year. I've already seen the events. It's going to be the same thing this year. They've booked me for, I think, a dinner for 2 or 3 nights, so people can sign up and have dinner with me. And Neocon in Bozeman, Montana. Beautiful Bozeman, Montana. That'll be the only other appearances. I'm making 3 this year because I am just overwhelmed, packed. So hopefully you can see me in Bozeman at Neocon, Neocon, and hopefully I'll meet you at one of those events. I don't go to these things unless they're going to be good, so trust me, it'll be good. Now, got one case today. A little different. Tons of mystery, tons of questions, and after I spent 2 weeks researching this case, I was so upset, mad. I could have pulled my hair out. So, it's a long one. Let's get into it. Just one. This lady's name was Mariam Carver. 40 years old, went missing August 29th, 2004. She's a former investment banker, securities salesperson. She was born April 3rd, 1964 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She had one daughter, and in 2004, that daughter was 13 years old. She was divorced. Her father, Marian's father, was the CEO of Washington National Insurance Company, huge company. Marian had lived in Houston, in Arizona, in California, and in Massachusetts, and presently lived in Cambridge. She was described by family members as an overachiever and very sensitive. Not sensitive overly, but just politely. August 25th, 2004, Marian booked a flight from Boston to Seattle, Washington, and just an hour later booked a cruise to Alaska on celebrity cruise ship Mercury. Now, I'd never heard of this ship, but it did exist. It's probably cruising somewhere in the world. This is what it looks like. Now, Celebrity cruise ships are owned by Royal Caribbean, just so you know. This is the ship she was on, and she booked a 9th floor room by herself. Marian was somebody that her dad said loved to travel, often did things on the spur of the moment like this. Nothing unusual up to this point. Everything was normal. Her behavior she didn't like making long-term plans ahead of time. Oftentimes she'd make the plans and boom, she was gone. Just so you know. August 27th, 2004. Marian arrives at the cruise port in Seattle. Now hold your taters. I just did 2 Bigfoot cruises back to back, leaving from the same port on a Royal Caribbean ship. Now I know more than most about this kind of stuff. I have friends that are private investigators that do this kind of work, and let me just start off by telling you a little bit about cruise ships. Everyone gets on a ship or goes to a resort, lets down their guard, and just has fun. And that's really what vacations are all about. But now I'm going to educate you. When you get on a cruise ship, I guarantee you have no idea who those employees are that are working around you. You have none. Many of these employees are from third world countries. And they're on the cruise line because they're just trying to earn a living. And trust me, they're not getting paid overly well working for the cruise ships. And when you are from a third world country, it's nearly impossible for that cruise line to do a background check on you, because oftentimes there's no computerized criminal history in these countries. Oftentimes, one person is fired by one cruise line and hired by another. They don't know. Oftentimes, they have such similar names, it's almost impossible to tell people apart. So why am I telling you this? Because when you get on a cruise ship, don't let all your guard down. Have fun. When you're at a big dinner and you're with your friends, hey, let your guard down. Nothing's going to happen there. But if you're walking around that cruise ship 2, 3, 4 in the morning and nobody's around, keep your guard up. Because like I said, you don't know who else is out there. You don't know who else is on that cruise ship. They could have a person on that cruise ship that's a serial killer or a rapist. You don't know. And I don't mean an employee, I mean a passenger. They don't do background checks before you book on a cruise. They don't know who's on those ships. See what I'm saying? And I'm not saying this to scare people. I'm saying this to save your life. If you have a young teenage daughter, even a son, they think they're on this ship and they're going to be safe. Just recently, there was a young man that was raped by another man on a cruise ship. Made big press. Point being, keep your level of awareness high. If it was me and I was traveling with my 18, 19-year-old daughter, 20-year-old daughter, they aren't going outside that cabin without me walking around the decks of those cruise ships or going to a bar. Without me, no way. Now, August 27th, Marian arrives at the cruise port in Seattle. Let me tell you, it's a busy, busy day when that happens. Thousands of people are out. The cruise ship she was on held 2,000 people. But oftentimes, when this is going on, other ships are boarding as well. Thousands of people are moving through there. Now, she didn't tell any family members where she was going. She did travel a lot. Normally she told people, sometimes she didn't. This time she didn't. The ship had 12 decks. It's a big ship, 2,000 people. When she arrived, she gets to her cabin on the 9th floor, and she meets the cabin attendant. If you've never been on a cruise, each cabin has a cabin attendant. Usually these attendants have 10 rooms, and their job is to cater to you. Keep your room clean, answer all your questions. If you want something special, they'll bring it, etc., etc. They're usually super nice because they want a big tip at the end of the cruise. And you always you always tip your attendant if they're good. And normally they're outstanding. So Marian gets on the ship, the attendant comes in, they always introduce themselves that first day, and Marian asks if she could have some extra towels. Typical response. And in fact, the last 2 cruises I've been on, I've done the exact same thing, because I put a sign outside my door that when I'm not there, I don't want them cleaning my room. I don't want anyone going through my stuff. I'll get new linens and things and put them on myself. I'll get new bath towels, but I don't like people coming into my room. That's just me. Apparently she was the same way. I get it. So she asked for extra towels. She was later described by the attendant as very polite, engaging, and not depressed at all. Her steward later comes back to her room to deliver the towels and observes Marian sitting in her chair, writing in her journal. Typical. A typical response. Now, unbeknownst to Marian, her daughter, who was 13 at the time, had tried calling her that day, but she was in an area with no cell reception and she couldn't get through. That happens. August 28th, first day at sea, second day on the ship. That night was the captain's formal dinner. If you've never been on a ship, it's kind of a big deal. I've gone to a couple. The last 3 or 4 cruises I've gone on, I haven't gone. You know, the captain goes around, there's an area where you go and you can dress up real nice in your suit and your tie or your tux. And the captain's dressed in his best coat and tie, and they take a picture with you. If you like doing that stuff, it's great. I don't do it, but a lot of people do. I usually just go and have a nice dinner and then leave with my friends. Well, the night of that dinner, the attendant goes in, and what they do at night is they pull down your sheets, they put maybe a chocolate strawberry on a napkin on your bed for you. They do all these kind of things. And he comes in to pull down the bed, and he sees her in the room and asks, "Are you not attending the captain's dinner?" And she said no. But she said, "Can you help me order room service since I'm not going up for dinner?" He says, "Sure." And she orders 2 sandwiches. Attendant leaves, comes back the next day, August 29th. The room steward enters the room to clean it and notices that the bed had never been slept in that night. Marian wasn't in her room. The shoes she was wearing were on the floor, and the dress she was wearing is laying on the bed. And the attendant picks up 2 plates. A sandwich came on each plate, picks up the plates. And in the back of his mind, he's really concerned because she'd always been in her room, and now her clothing there, her shoes are there. If you're a missing 411 person, you're going, this doesn't sound right. Well, he reports it to his supervisor, as he should. Supervisor later calls him, the attendant, into the office and puts in front of him a non-disclosure agreement. And in it states for him to stop talking about this and to leave it alone. He tells him, "Go back and do your job and clean the rooms." Wow. I don't think that is the right response. But of all the people on the cruise ship, these employees you have to work your way up to this position. It's a pretty responsible thing. You got to be highly trusted. You're around a lot of expensive things. You go into these rooms, personal things, etc. And it's one of those rare jobs on the ship where you get more money than just your salary. You get tips. Well, Marian's daughter still continued to try to contact her mom and couldn't get through. And that was not normal, because Marian would always contact and get a hold of her daughter when she left a message. So Marian's daughter, her father, Marian's daughter's father, is the ex-husband of Marian. The daughter tells the dad, something's really wrong, mom's not calling me. So the father calls Marian's dad, Kendall Carver, who's living in Arizona, and explains that something might be wrong. Ken tries calling on her cell phone, doesn't get through. Then tries calling her on her landline in Cambridge, doesn't get through. Marian was closest to Ken and her daughter of everybody. Ken knew something was wrong. So Ken calls the Cambridge, Massachusetts police, and he files a missing person report. And he gives police Marian's address and asks them to go do a welfare check. Welfare check. Somebody in the family requests a police officer to go to a residence and do a welfare check. You may think, well, police can't enter your residence for no cause. Yeah, they kind of can. In these circumstances, they can. What if you're laying on the floor in the house and you had a stroke and you can't move? You're going to hope the police come in and save you. Well, police get to the apartment and there's no sign of forced entry. They speak to the neighbors. They haven't seen her in days. Police go to the manager's office, ask if the manager's seen her. They haven't. Car isn't in the carport. So they ask the manager to access to the apartment to do a welfare check. And they get in. Police find that the apartment is in perfect order. They look for the usual things. They find suitcases, lots of clothing. Her laptop is there. They take the laptop after talking to the father. Now, August 30th, back on the cruise. The room attendant goes back into Marian's room. She still hasn't been there. He doesn't know what to do. He's told by the supervisor, hey, just keep it to yourself. That is not what policy and procedure is on a cruise line. I'm going to tell you right out front. I know. Things done appropriately, they should have searched the whole ship for her. As soon as somebody's known to be missing and they can't find her on the ship, they turn the ship around and they start searching. Well, eventually the cruise ends. Marian's belongings are still in her room. Attendant again goes back to the supervisor and says, what do you want me to do with her personal items? He's told to put them in a bag and put them in a locker. The room steward, had reportedly tried to report the incident multiple times to his supervisor, told to be quiet against policy, major policy violations. September 15th, back in Cambridge, the police had very limited communication with the family. They did manage to access Marian's bank account, and they found something very unusual. Or they found something that really broke the case open. They found that she bought a ticket in August to go on an Alaska cruise. On the same company that Dave's gone on Alaska cruises several times. This is Marian. 40 years old, great health, described as polite, friendly, engaging. Well, Ken, her father, contacts Celebrity Cruise, where she booked the cruise. They confirm that she did board the ship in Seattle, but stated that they can't confirm that she got off in Seattle. And why is that? Well, at the time, you had these cruise cards. They still have them. And when you stop into a port, you have to, every time you get off the ship, you have to present your card. It goes through a computer. It marks you as off the ship. Therefore, when they're ready to leave, they know if they have everybody back on the ship or not. In those days, when you got off, when the cruise was over in Seattle, they didn't log you off. So, Ken knows that his daughter got on the ship, but Celebrity can't tell him if she got off. October 2004, Ken hires one of the largest private investigator firms in the USA. And he gets assigned a PI named Tim. Tim travels out to Seattle and gets authority to board the Mercury and speaks with the claim manager on the ship. He asked to speak to the room attendant for Marian's room. And he's told, oh, he's not here. He got transferred to another ship. Well, isn't that something? Do you think maybe they did that just so he couldn't contact him? Just so there wouldn't be this chain that would be easy to contact and figure out what happened? Well, then he asked to talk to the supervisor of the attendant. And he says, I'm sorry, he's unavailable. Cruise Line made all the factual witnesses to this event unavailable. Tim was told that he only needed to talk to the claims manager because the claims manager knew everything and all the information he'd need. Well, he's also asked to speak to the security manager because Tim knows that all people that are missing have to get reported to security. And he's told that the security manager is training people and is unavailable. Okay, right about now, I'd want to reach over that desk and strangle that guy. I'm just saying. Tim did get access to the 9th floor and found all the windows were locked and bolted, so nobody could open them. That's where Marian's room was at. The PI also inquired about other security cameras and was told that their contents were deleted every 2 weeks. And all the footage captured on Marian's cruise had been destroyed because that 2-week window was over. He also inquired about other security people that may not be involved in training and said, no, they're all involved. I'm sorry, they're unavailable. PI comes off the ship, reports back to Ken. Now you're Ken. All of the employees on this cruise ship are unavailable, too busy to talk to you. You're missing your daughter. How would that make you feel towards the cruise line? Irate doesn't even begin to tell me. I would be blowing my stack. January 2005, Ken hires a specialized cruise attorney firm from Florida and Massachusetts. Remember I told you that Ken was super smart, CEO of a big, huge insurance company. He knows how to play the game, and he had the resources to hire the best people. And he was going to get to the bottom of it. The issue being, if it was you and me, we couldn't be able to afford to follow this track. He spent $75,000 just on private investigators to get to this point. So, months of requests after he's hired this law firm, the attorney firm finally gets authority to subpoena the crew of the Mercury that were involved and had contact with Marian. They do telephone depositions as the employees were scattered around the world. Depositions showed that the employees knew of the disappearance and did nothing. The ship wasn't searched, and the captain of the ship and the security personnel were never notified. The steward reported in the deposition that he repeatedly tried to tell the supervisor that Marian was missing, and he was told to just do your job and clean your rooms. Now, if I'm the attorney, I'm thinking, are these people concealing a crime, or are they just hiding their ignorance and stupidity over a disappearance? You don't know. And in September, the PI contacts Royal Caribbean and asks if they ever reported Marian missing. They reply no. So, I'm not sure what cruise line wouldn't have a policy that there's mandatory reporting of a missing person. September 27th. Guess what happens? Royal Caribbean files a missing person report with the FBI. Oh, that's brilliant. But they are not idiots. They have their own private investigators and attorneys. And they know that if they file a missing person report with the FBI, number one, the FBI has a policy that they don't investigate missing people, missing adults. Missing children are different. Missing adults, they don't deal with that. And Royal Caribbean also knows that the FBI doesn't have jurisdiction to investigate incidents on cruise ships. Da-da-da. That's why they reported it to the FBI. September 30th, a security report filed by the cruise line said that the cruise policies were violated internally because the ship's captain and security must be notified if someone is presumed missing. Coast Guard is in charge of cruise ships, just so you know. Well, Ken doesn't give up. And by the way, this is Ken, her dad. Continued calling Coast Guard, FBI, police, asking for updates. In August 2005, the lawsuit that he filed against Royal Caribbean goes public. And the charges are, they file for carelessness and negligence. I'm sure there was more. Concealment of evidence, etc., etc. Well, the cruise line now made a statement, and I've heard some statements in my life, but I want to know the attorney that approved this statement that I'm going to read to you that they sent to the law firm and to Ken. This is what it said. Miss Carver had severe emotional problems and had attempted suicide before and appears to have committed suicide on our ship. The death of Mariam Carver is a horrible tragedy, but regrettable there is little the cruise line, a resort, or a hotel can do to prevent someone from committing suicide. Who was the fool that authorized that? Here's why. There's no evidence, per the family, that Marian ever tried to commit suicide in the past. And if somebody doesn't know someone else, how do they know she had severe emotional problems? wording attempted suicide or prevent someone from committing suicide, I'm not the greatest writer in the world, but I wouldn't have used those words. I would have said maybe attempted to take their life. There's much more subtle verbiage to be used. The person who wrote this, almost as though they tried to impart pain. It's unbelievable. I read it and I couldn't believe it. Well, then what follows is the cruise line makes a statement that Marian is dead and that the crew watched a video of her jumping off the ship to her demise. Wait a minute. I thought the cruise ship told the PI that all the footage had been destroyed. Oh, they say that the footage has been destroyed now, but some people on the ship had seen this footage. Now you're Ken. How irate would you be? Being lied to for months and months and months. He demanded that they show him the evidence. Well, they never did, claiming that footage had been destroyed. So what kind of business is this cold-blooded to do this to a family? January 1st, 2006, the International Cruise Victims Association was established by Ken. Ken wanted to do something for cruise families that have been victimized, and he established this association with all the different venues for help that he had to find on his own. And then some really strange things came out about this case. In the depositions, they found out that when the attendant went in the room, the dress that Marian was wearing was found in the room, along with the only pair of shoes she brought were in the room, making the presumption being that if she left the room and jumped off the ship, she did it in her underwear. They also found out that she never used her onboard charge card. So this cruise ship card that you have has your picture on it, your name, and your, I don't know what else is on there. But any place you go, you can charge anything on it. She never charged anything. When she ordered room service, it was just charged to her room. The family reiterated that there's no record of her ever disembarking from that ship. Remember what I told you? When you get off at these different ports that they stop at, you got to put your card in this machine. It scans it, comes out the other side, you get it, and you're off. When you come back on the ship, go through the same machine. The administrators there at that port can look and see who didn't make it back on the ship. And they can hold the ship for a short period of time. But I'm telling you right now, they don't hold these ships for you if you're going to be late. Now, if it's a ship-sponsored excursion, there's like 15 people on a bus and the bus is late, then they'll hold it. If you're out there on your own, you are in deep poo-poo. That ship is leaving and you're not getting on. Now, the steward did testify in the deposition that Marian never seemed sad, angry, depressed. In 2015, the U.S. Senate passed the Cruise Ship Passenger Protection Act, all organized and pushed by Ken, the father. It mandates the filing of reports when a missing person happens, mandates preservation of evidence, It also mandates that ships have rape kits on them. So a rape kit is a collection of evidence from a woman after she's raped. The rationale behind this, if you're in the middle of a cruise and you get raped, you're not going to go 3 or 4 days without taking a shower. You take a shower, the evidence is destroyed. So now the doctors on the ship are trained on evidence collection, and this rape kit has to be used. Never happened before. They also mandated that peepholes on the customers' doors to their rooms must be there. Didn't happen before. And they mandated a certain number of video cameras at certain locations on the ship. Ken really was the centerpiece on this. And when you look at people that have suffered extreme tragedy, there's always something that comes of this most of the time. Alan Atadero. When Jared was missing, and they didn't find him for years, Alan went out and wrote 2 books. Great books. Other people have done things like Ken. It's almost as though you have to work this out of your system. Something good has to come out of this great disaster. As I was doing the research on this case, there was a story out of Canada that the remains of a body were found on a beach. So when you cruise from Seattle and you take the inland passage route, you're going up amongst all these islands in Canada. Well, they found a body on one of the beaches, and right away, they actually thought the body might have been Marian's. And they did a lot of DNA testing, etc., and it was not her. And I never heard if they were able to identify the body. So in Marian's incident, the cruise line concealed and destroyed evidence. Fact. Ken did win his lawsuit against the cruise line. And friends, those lawsuits are expensive. Like I told you, you spent $75,000 on just private investigators to get to the point where he could get depositions done, to prove to a judge that something unusual had happened. Important point. Like 99% of all the cruise ships stopping in a U.S. port are registered in foreign countries. Many times Bahamian countries, African countries. Why? Because they're more protective of the assets of the company, more protective than U.S. law would be. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. The employees on a ship, you never really know, like I stated earlier, who these people are. And remember that. I encourage you to go on the cruise ships, because I do. I have fun. But I don't get stupid, and I'm never by myself. So I want to encourage you to do the same thing. I feel very sorry for Ken, because Ken did a lot for us, the world, by pushing and getting these laws enacted. He did a lot. In December 2019, Ken passed away. Never found out what happened to his daughter. And you know who I think about? I think about Marian's daughter. She never found out what really happened to her mom. Do I believe what the cruise company said about her jumping overboard? No. Why should I? They lied about everything else. Why should I believe them? I don't know what happened to her. And I think the daughter deserved answers. She's now a young adult, and my prayers are with her. And Ken, God rest your soul, you did a lot of good after you missed your daughter. Thank you for pushing that legislation through. So that's our story for today. There's a lot of evil in this world, folks. And you just have to use common sense and always have that flashing yellow light in the back of your brain. It'll keep you alive. Huck moved a little bit. She's just there sleeping, her eyes are closed. She's tired, I'm telling you. Thanks for being here. Kindness. Spread kindness around the world. Light us out.